Iraqi troops have penetrated Mosul from the north for a first time as part of a new phase in the battle to liberate the city from Daesh terrorists. The military officials say the troops have entered the residential Al-Habda apartment complex now in northern Mosul. Government forces face fierce resistance from the terrorists. Operations part of a major new push launched just last week to seize ground in the city. Now, in a speech, the Iraqi Prime Minister praised the latest developments. Haider al-Abadi said that Baghdad will soon, quote, cut the head of the snake and drive the Takfiri group from its largest urban stronghold.
To the index tonight, and a miracle story of survival. A baby on board a small plane in Wisconsin that crashed shortly after takeoff, surviving. The father who was piloting the plane was killed, the mother is in critical condition, and the grandmother who witnessed them all taking off, then calling 911 hoping there were survivors.
Flew off the runway and then it crashed into a car.
But tonight, that miracle headline emerging, the baby, her grandson on board, surviving the flight. A judge today denying bail for 4 young African-American suspects accused of abusing a mentally disabled white man. The disturbing incident from Chicago we reported on last night here, streamed live on Facebook, sparking outrage. The 4 suspects in court today facing kidnapping and hate crimes charges. The judge asking them, quote, where was the sense of decency that each of you should have had?
Russia's defense ministry has announced it will start to reduce its military presence in Syria. The statement comes after a nationwide ceasefire brokered by Russia and Turkey was implemented last week. And as a first step towards the partial pullout, the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov, currently stationed off the Syrian coast, is preparing to sail home. RT's Murad Gazdiev takes a closer look at the Russian flagship's mission in Syria.
The Russian naval battle group stationed just off of Syria's coast is already packing up, preparing to leave, to head back to Russia. That includes the Admiral Kuznetsov aircraft carrier. This was, by the way, its first ever real combat operation. It had never taken part in a real operation before. But, you know, this is nothing surprising. Vladimir Putin recently told us that, you know, mission accomplished. We're going to downsize the Russian military force in Syria.
I agree with the proposal of the Defense Ministry to reduce our military presence in the Syrian Republic, bearing in mind that we will unconditionally continue to fight against international terrorism, and we will continue to support the legitimate Syrian government in the fight against terror.
The President-elect got his much-anticipated intelligence briefing today, as we mentioned, over the hacks leading up to the November election. Afterwards, President-elect Trump issued praise, gave a promise, and acknowledged Russia's role in the cyber attacks. Senior national correspondent John Roberts is outside Trump Tower tonight with more on today's meeting. Good evening, John.
Brett, good evening to you. In the run-up to today's briefing, Donald Trump had been publicly very skeptical about Russia's possible involvement in the hack of the DNC server. But after spending 90 minutes with the chiefs of the intelligence agencies, Donald Trump seemed to give a tacit acknowledgement that Russia was at least trying to hack the Democratic Party. It was a who's who of the intelligence community at Trump Tower today. The Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, CIA Director John Brennan, the FBI's James Comey, and Admiral Mike Rogers from the NSA. Following the 90-minute briefing, Trump said he, quote, had a constructive meeting and conversation with the leaders of the intelligence community this afternoon. While Trump agreed Russia, China, and others are trying to hack us, he firmly asserted, quote, there was absolutely no effect on the outcome of the election, including the fact that there was no tampering whatsoever with voting machines. Trump acknowledged we need to aggressively combat and stop cyber attacks and said he will appoint a team to give me a plan within 90 days of taking office.
2017 has only just been rung in, but already leading company bosses in the UK have made more money in the first 3 working days of the year than the average Briton does for the next 12 months. And a think tank's released the figures showing a striking pay gap between high-ranking CEOs and average employees. Anastasia Churkina takes up the story.
Excited about a bit of a pay rise this year? Well, you must have not heard about Fat Cat Wednesday. Here in the UK, top CEOs are said to have made more money by lunchtime on January 4th than the average worker will in the whole entire year. That's right, in just 2.5 workdays. How can this even be, you ask? Well, an average FTSE 100 boss is estimated to enjoy a hefty £1,000 per hour, while the average UK salary is just a tad over £28,000 a year. So the math is simple.
Pay them less and pay everyone else a bit more. It's so easy. I don't know how it happens to be like this.
People should be satisfied with just enough. But unfortunately, the world today is all greed. All greed.
We could go on cruises.
Spending the money.
Could go on cruises?
Yes, we could, couldn't we? Could go on cruises.
We go on cruises now.
While we're slaving our ass off, them lot are just sitting in the office, just signing off documents and getting a lot of money.
Groups that analyze the paychecks here in the UK also found that bosses typically make 129 times more than their employees, 400 times more than the minimum wage worker, 172 times more than a nurse, and 145 times more than a teacher. So how's that for an income gap?
Some of us are at the bottom and the rest are stepping on us to go to the top.
It'd be nice to be in that position, wouldn't it?
Would it?
It'd be nice if you're in the right side of it, yeah.
Well, it's not right, is it? It's not... No, it's definitely not right. It shouldn't be.
It's just crazy. I mean, it is crazy. It's like the world has gone mad, I do think so.
The public is waiting for the government to make their promises of narrowing the income gap a reality, which for now seems nothing more but a utopian dream.
It is a mess here. Multiple casualties. Officials believe there was one shooter. That person is believed to be in custody. Obviously, this investigation is going to be a massive one. I'm seeing people that are loading cars and they're being allowed to leave, it appears like. But you got to imagine that inside that baggage claim area, there's going to be a serious screening of everyone that was inside. The ATF, as we heard, is on the way to the scene right now. I am seeing a very large presence of Broward County sheriff's officers. The entire airport has been shut down. I will note that I just saw a flight leaving, so it appears they're probably trying to clear the tarmac. But other than that, no real movement is coming into the airport other than media and a few cars that are being let out of the loop here at Fort Lauderdale Airport. Again, a very large police presence, a very, very disorganized scene, at least from what we've seen so far in terms of people moving bags around everywhere. But it does appear that officials are locking down Terminal 2 and trying to get people out with those buses that I mentioned before.
Just before 1 p.m., a gunman opens fire at Fort Lauderdale International Airport. Chaos inside Terminal 2. At least 13 people shot with multiple casualties. This cell phone video shows people lying on the floor in the baggage claim area. The panic inside the terminal then spills outside as hundreds run from the gunshots, flooding onto the tarmac and out onto the runways. The injured quickly evacuated to a nearby hospital.
Everybody started running out of Terminal 1, out of the rental car place. Some lady was yelling for help down in the garage, so I just ran.
CNN has learned that the suspected shooter left Alaska earlier today, bound for Fort Lauderdale. He declared a firearm when boarding, that weapon packed inside his luggage. Sources say the suspect may have gotten into an altercation during the flight. And on arrival, after retrieving his bag, one source tells CNN he went into a bathroom and came out firing. Long after the shooting, hundreds continue to run through open areas around the airport, some driven by false reports of additional shootings.
The shooter in custody, he's unharmed. No law enforcement fired any shots. The subject is being interviewed by a team of FBI agents and Broward Sheriff's Office homicide detectives. At this point, it looks like he acted alone.
Multiple sources identify the alleged shooter as Esteban Santiago. He's said to have been a member of the Alaska National Guard, leaving the Guard last July.
In a sign of further splits within the EU on migration, Luxembourg's foreign minister has slammed Austrian proposals to create asylum centres outside the bloc. Jean Asselborn told the German press the idea of penning in refugees on a rented island outside the EU belongs for me to a right-wing national line of thinking. Austrian Foreign Minister Sebastian Kurz and his coalition government want to overhaul the EU's migrant policy by only permitting asylum applications from outside EU borders. Both Austria and its neighbour Germany took in waves of migrants, many of them from the Middle East and North Africa, during Europe's migrant crisis in 2015.
Let's go back to our other breaking news story this hour. A newly declassified US intelligence report claims Vladimir Putin ordered hackers to meddle in the US presidential elections in a bid to help Donald Trump win. Let's get analysis on this from Gregory Copley. He's editor of Defence and Foreign Affairs. Also, he's president of the International Strategic Studies Association. Welcome, Gregory. The report is really heavy on assertions and very light. Well, it's not even very light. It's weightless in terms of evidence. I mean, to be fair, we did hear US intelligence leaders say they weren't going to disclose some details because of confidentiality, but I think people were expecting some kind of, even a crumb of evidence. Why nothing?
Well, because there is not a lot to say. Frankly, it would have been inconceivable that the Russian government and any other government around the world did not use its electronic collection capabilities to learn as much as possible about the candidates and the possible direction of the US election. But that's not a matter of influencing the election. Secondly, we have to see that if the Russian government was itself trying to influence the election, then it did a very poor job of doing it, because Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. So in other words, the message ostensibly coming from the Kremlin didn't get to the US electorate. And what saved US democracy, in a sense, was the Electoral College process, which actually restored some of the balance to the regions rather than just to the urban areas. So the reality is that there is not a lot of evidence to be had. Did the Russian government, the Russian intelligence services, and possibly at the direction of the president, try to find out everything they could from the Democratic National Committee and from the Republicans, for that matter? Almost certainly. The question is, did that collection of information have anything to do with the outcome of the election? This is a highly politically motivated and subjective report which was issued by the intelligence community, and it's not surprising that it rushed to this report whilst the Obama administration was still in office, because there's no question this was politically induced, this report.
Time now for our big board, and John Carl is back for our first story. And let's start with Hillary Clinton. Could she be, people are saying, she could be the next mayor of New York City. Less than 2 months after conceding the election to Donald Trump, Newsmax reports Clinton may be considering a run against Bill de Blasio. So, John, there's been a lot of speculation over what she might do next.
Yes.
Mayor of New York, what do you think?
Okay, this is one of the craziest stories I have heard, okay? I mean, look, think about this. After going through all that she has gone through, she wants to do a rope-a-dope battle in a Democratic primary in New York against Bill de Blasio, who, by the way, was the campaign manager of her first campaign for Senate. I don't think so, but here's the interesting thing, Amy. We've asked the Clinton folks about this. Guess what they've said?
What?
Nothing.
Oh.
They don't knock it down. They're not knocking it down.
Interesting.
So it's still there. Let the speculation continue.
So if it's not this, what is it?
Well, it's hard to say. She's been extraordinarily quiet, of course, since losing. We've seen somebody else who won the popular vote and lost the presidency. It was Al Gore. He was extraordinarily quiet for a long period of time and then went on to become an award-winning documentary filmmaker and found another cause. I'm not sure what Hillary Clinton's cause will be, but she clearly still has a very loud voice.
A lot of people think she'd win, though, for sure, if she
Mayor of New York?
Yes.
Yeah, but would she want the job? I mean, that's the question.
Maybe she wants the win.
You know, I mean, Rahm Emanuel became mayor of Chicago. I don't know if she'll look at that example and think about how much fun